Park Jin-young built a career on saying no. The man behind Twice, 2PM, and Wonder Girls has rejected thousands of trainees, sent home contestants on live television, and once told a room full of hopefuls that talent without sincerity is worthless. So when he sits down and singles out what makes each member of a group irreplaceable, not good, not promising, but irreplaceable, that carries a different kind of weight. Stray Kids debuted under his label in 2018 after surviving a brutal elimination show that he himself designed. 8 members, self-producing, a group he once had serious doubts about, and yet, over the years, in interviews, evaluations, company events, and rare candid moments, JYP has gone out of his way to name exactly what each of those 8 members brings to the table that no one else can replicate. Not generic compliments, specific, pointed observations from a man who has spent 30 decades reading talent for a living. What did he see in Bong Chan that made him wait 7 years? What did he hear in Felix's voice after nearly cutting him for good? And why did he call one member the future of JYP Entertainment? Here's what he said and why he meant every word. Number 8. The Quiet Investment. Young Jung-in. When Stray Kids' survival show aired on Mnet in late 2017, Young Jung-in stood in a room full of trainees who had spent years sharpening themselves inside JYP Entertainment's walls. Bang Chan had been training for roughly 7 years. Changbin and Han had already been writing and producing music together as part of what would become the production unit Three Racha. And then there was Jung-in, 16 years old, with one of the shortest training periods in the group, braces still on his teeth, and a voice that had not yet fully settled into itself. By the metrics the K-pop industry uses to measure debut readiness, technique, stage control, versatility, he was the least prepared person on that show. Park Jin-young saw all of it. He did not pretend otherwise. During evaluations, JYP acknowledged the gap between Jung-in and his older, more seasoned groupmates. His dancing needed work. His range as a performer was narrower than what JYP expected from someone on the verge of debuting under one of Korea's most established entertainment companies. The assessment was honest, and it was not gentle, but JYP also identified something in that evaluation that the raw metrics missed. Jung-in's vocal tone had a brightness to it, a clean and open quality that no one else in the group could replicate. In a lineup being built around heavy production, aggressive rap verses, and dense, layered instrumentals, that brightness was not a deficit, it was architecture. There is a concept Park Jin-young has championed across his entire career, one that has shaped how he evaluates every trainee who walks through JYP Entertainment's doors: sincerity over technique. He has said it in interviews, during auditions, on camera, and behind closed doors. That skill can be taught, refined, and polished through repetition, but the authenticity of a performer's emotional delivery is either present or it is not. It cannot be manufactured in a vocal booth or rehearsed into existence. And when Jung-in stood on stage during those survival show performances, he was not compensating for what he lacked by adding theatrical flair or borrowing stylistic choices from more experienced idols. He sang from a direct, unguarded place, not polished, not technically flawless, but genuine in a way that JYP has spent 30 decades learning to recognize as the single most important foundation a young artist can have. Everything else, in JYP's philosophy, gets built on top of that foundation. Without it, nothing holds. One of the most overlooked details about how Stray Kids came together is that Bang Chan was given an unusual level of authority in selecting his own members. JYP trusted Chan's instincts enough to let him handpick the trainees he wanted to build a group around. And Chan chose Jung-in. That decision was deliberate. Chan understood something about the group's sonic identity that went beyond individual talent. Stray Kids' music is dense by design. Their tracks stack distorted bass, aggressive synth lines, rapid-fire rap verses, and layered vocal processing on top of each other in ways that push the boundaries of what K-pop production typically attempts. Without a voice that could cut through that density with clarity and lightness, the group's sound risked becoming one-dimensional, an unbroken wall of intensity with no contrast. Jung-in's voice served as the release point, the moment in a Stray Kids song where the pressure eases just enough for the listener to recalibrate before the next wave hits. JYP recognized this structural necessity and approved Chan's choice, not because Jung-in was the most skilled trainee available, but because what he brought was functionally irreplaceable. But being selected for potential creates its own pressure. The implicit deal is simple. The organization invests in your future, and you deliver on it. The clock starts at debut, and what Jung-in did between Stray Kids' debut with District 9 in March 2018 and the years that followed quietly became one of the most significant individual development arcs within the group. His vocal range expanded. His live performance stability improved to the point where the gap JYP had noted on the Survival show was no longer audible. His ability to handle the physically punishing choreography that Stray Kids is known for, routines that demand full-intensity singing and dancing simultaneously, progressed from visibly effortful to seamless. This is not interpretation. It is documented across their discography and live concert footage, track by track, comeback by comeback, in measurable detail. JYP Entertainment's internal training infrastructure played a role. The company maintains a continuous development system for its debuted artists, vocal coaches, performance trainers, regular evaluations that do not stop just because an artist has already debuted. Jung-in engaged with that system consistently. The results showed in his parts within the group's releases. In their earliest tracks, his lines were carefully allocated, positioned in sections that suited his range without overextending it. As the months and years passed, his contributions grew in both volume and complexity. He began carrying choruses. He held extended notes in live settings without wavering. He delivered emotional texture through his vocals alone, no longer relying solely on the brightness of his tone, but adding control, nuance, and intention behind it. The trajectory from debut to the group's later albums is not subtle. It is a clearly audible transformation that anyone can verify by listening chronologically. JYP has discussed publicly what he calls color balance within a group, the idea that each member contributes a specific tonal shade to the overall identity, and that removing or diminishing any single shade fundamentally changes the picture. Jung-in's shade is warmth. Stray Kids' musical and performance identity tilts heavily toward intensity, raw power, and aggressive energy. Without a counterweight, that identity risks becoming fatiguing for the audience. Jung-in introduces a warmth and gentleness through his natural vocal color that prevents the group from becoming sonically monochromatic. It operates on the same principle that makes a film score effective. Sustained loudness loses its impact without moments of quiet to reset the ear. Jung-in is that reset, not because he performs with lower energy, but because the texture of his voice inherently provides contrast against the force surrounding him. JYP identified this as a structural asset during the Survival show, long before the group's sound had fully taken shape. He was designing in advance. Then there's the factor of time. Jung-in debuted at 17, the youngest member in a group where the oldest, Bang-chan, was over 3 years his senior. That age difference carries real consequences in a K-pop group because it affects how quickly a member matures under the specific pressures of public performance, media scrutiny, and a relentless comeback schedule. Jung-in effectively grew up on camera. His transition from a teenager with braces to a confident adult performer happened in real time, documented by every music video, every concert recording, every variety show appearance. JYP acknowledged during the group's formative period that Jung-in's youth was simultaneously his greatest vulnerability and his greatest long-term advantage. Vulnerability because the industry is unforgiving to those who are still finding themselves. Advantage because he had more runway than anyone else in the group to develop, improve, and reach his peak. The evaluation was not about where Jung-in stood in 2018, it was about where he would stand in 2025 and beyond.
That calculated patience, investing in a trajectory rather than a finished product, is one of JYP's defining traits as a label executive, and Jungin was perhaps its clearest expression within Stray Kids. And the investment paid. Jungin's presence on stage today is fundamentally different from the nervous trainee who faced JYP's evaluation cameras in 2017. He holds his ground in a group that features some of the most technically demanding performers in fourth-generation K-pop. His vocal contributions have grown to the point where his absence from a track would leave an audible hole. He commands audience attention during concerts not by being the loudest or the most physically explosive, but by being the most grounded, the member whose energy feels stable and steady at the center of controlled chaos. JYP saw that arc before it began. He read the raw material, projected the curve, and trusted the process. Jungin delivered on every count. But if JYP could spot hidden long-term value in the group's youngest and least experienced member, what did he recognize when he turned his attention to the member whose vocal precision could anchor an entire live performance without a single crack?
Number 7. The textbook that breathes, Kim Seungmin. In an industry where vocal performance often means dramatic runs, stylistic distortion, and emotional over-delivery, Kim Seungmin does something that is far more difficult than any of those things. He sings clean. Not clean as in safe, clean as in technically precise, pitch-accurate, controlled, and repeatable under conditions that would break most trained singers. Park Jin-young noticed this during the Stray Kids survival show in 2017, and what he identified in Seungmin was not glamorous, not immediately headline-worthy, but structurally essential. JYP called Seungmin's approach to singing textbook. In any other context, that word might sound like a backhanded compliment, mechanical, rigid, lacking personality. But coming from Park Jin-young, a man who has spent over 30 decades developing vocalists across multiple generations of K-pop, it meant something very specific. It meant that Seungmin understood vocal fundamentals at a level that most trainees his age did not. Breath support, pitch placement, vowel shaping, diaphragmatic control, the invisible mechanics that determine whether a singer can deliver the same quality on take 1 and take 100. JYP was not praising Seungmin for being boring, he was praising him for being reliable in the way that the entire group's live performance integrity would eventually depend on. And that assessment has proven to be exactly right. To understand why JYP valued this so highly, you have to understand what Stray Kids does on stage. This is not a group that stands behind microphone stands and delivers ballads. Their choreography is among the most physically demanding in fourth-generation K-pop. High-impact movement, sharp formation changes, floor work, lifts, and sustained high-energy sequences that run back-to-back across 2-hour concert sets. Every member is expected to sing live while executing these routines at full intensity. That is the standard Stray Kids set for themselves, and it is the standard their audience holds them to. In that environment, a vocalist who can maintain pitch accuracy and tonal consistency while their body is under extreme physical stress is not a luxury, it is a load-bearing pillar. Remove it, and the entire live sound shifts. Seungmin is that pillar. His vocal delivery in concert settings has been documented extensively through fan recordings, official concert footage, and broadcast performances. The consistency is the point. He does not have nights where his pitch drifts or his tone thins out from fatigue. He locks in and stays locked in, song after song, set after set. That kind of stamina-based vocal reliability is not something you develop overnight, and it is not something most singers can replicate regardless of how much they train. It requires a specific combination of natural vocal placement, disciplined breathing technique, and the physical conditioning to sustain both while dancing. JYP recognized early that Seungmin had the natural placement. The technique and conditioning were built on top of it through JYP Entertainment's training infrastructure, but the foundation was already there during the survival show.
Seungmin entered JYP Entertainment through a public audition, without the kind of extensive pre-training background that some of his groupmates had. He was not a child performer. He did not come from a music academy pipeline. What he brought was a voice that sat naturally in the right place, forward, resonant, and centered in a way that required less corrective coaching than JYP typically has to invest in young vocalists. During the survival show, Seungmin was not eliminated. Unlike Lee No and Felix, who were both cut and later reinstated, Seungmin maintained his position throughout the process. That continuity says something about how JYP evaluated him relative to the group's needs. In a show designed to test whether these trainees could function as a unit, Seungmin's presence was never in question. His role was clear from the beginning. He was the vocal constant, the member whose technical reliability gave the group a center of gravity that the more stylistically adventurous elements could orbit around. JYP's evaluation of Seungmin also connects to a broader principle in how he constructs groups. Park Jin-young has spoken repeatedly about the difference between a vocalist who excites and a vocalist who anchors. Both are necessary, but they serve fundamentally different functions. The vocalist who excites creates peaks, high notes, ad-libs, dramatic moments that generate emotional spikes. The vocalist who anchors creates the baseline, the melodic through line that holds a song together structurally so that the peaks have something to rise from. Without an anchor, peaks become chaos. They lose their impact because there's no reference point for the listener. Seungmin is Stray Kids' anchor. His vocal lines in the group's discography consistently serve a connective function, bridging the aggressive rap sections with the melodic choruses, providing tonal continuity across songs that shift dynamics rapidly and frequently. Listen to how Stray Kids structures their title tracks. The verses hit hard, the rap sections escalate intensity, and then a melodic passage arrives that has to hold the entire song together emotionally before the final chorus detonates. Seungmin's voice lives in those transitional spaces, and it does its job so seamlessly that casual listeners might not consciously register how much structural weight he is carrying.
JYP registers it because he has been building songs with that architecture for decades. He knows exactly what happens when that connective tissue is weak, and he identified Seungmin as someone who would never let it be weak. Beyond the group context, Seungmin's vocal ability has been validated in settings that isolate singing from the distractions of choreography and group dynamics. His appearance on MBC's King of Masked Singer put him in front of a panel of judges and a studio audience with nothing but his voice and a microphone. No choreography to hide behind, no group members to share the stage with, no production tricks to enhance his output. He performed, and he performed well. That kind of exposure is a litmus test. It reveals whether a vocalist's skill is genuine or propped up by the context of their group. Seungmin passed it cleanly, reinforcing what JYP had observed years earlier on the survival show. The voice was real, the technique was real, the reliability was real. What makes JYP's assessment of Seungmin particularly notable is its long-term accuracy. Predictions about young artists are notoriously unreliable. Trainees who look like vocal prodigies at 16 sometimes plateau. Others who seem limited at debut develop into powerhouses. JYP identified Seungmin's core strength, stability, technical precision, and functional reliability, and that identification has held true across every phase of Stray Kids' career. As the group's music has evolved, growing more complex in production and more demanding in vocal arrangement, Seungmin's role has not diminished, it has expanded. He handles more lines now than he did in their earliest releases. His vocal color has matured, gaining depth and richness without sacrificing the clean placement that JYP originally valued. He has developed the ability to inject emotional interpretation into his delivery while maintaining
the technical discipline that makes him the group's most dependable live singer. That is an extraordinarily difficult balance to achieve. Most vocalists either lean into emotion at the expense of precision or protect their technique by staying emotionally neutral. Seungmin does both simultaneously, and he does it while performing choreography that would leave most vocalists gasping between phrases. JYP saw this trajectory in a teenager at an audition. He saw textbook and understood it not as a ceiling but as a launch pad. A singer who masters fundamentals first can then layer expressiveness, stylistic range, and interpretive depth on top of a structure that will not collapse under pressure. That is exactly what Seungmin has done, and it is exactly what JYP predicted he would do. The textbook became a living performance, and the performance never once lost the precision that made it trustworthy in the first place. But vocal precision is one kind of reliability. What happens when JYP turns his attention to a member whose entire body is the instrument, someone who was cut from the group, told he was not enough, and came back to become one of the most technically exact dancers in the entire company's history?
Number 6. The dancer they almost lost, Lee Min-ho. Before Lee Min-ho ever set foot inside JYP Entertainment as a trainee, he was already performing on some of the biggest stages in K-pop, just not as himself. Min-ho worked as a backup dancer for BTS, standing behind one of the most famous groups on the planet, executing choreography at a professional level while still a teenager. That experience gave him something that most trainees who enter entertainment companies through the traditional audition pipeline do not have: a working understanding of what it actually feels like to perform in front of thousands of people under real lighting with real pressure, where a single misstep is visible to an arena full of eyes and a broadcast camera that does not blink. He knew what professional-grade performance demanded because he had already been inside it. So when he auditioned for JYP Entertainment and was accepted as a trainee, he arrived with a physical vocabulary that set him apart from day one. His movements were sharp, his spatial awareness, the ability to know exactly where his body exists relative to other performers, to the camera, to the edges of the stage, was already calibrated. Park Jin-young saw all of this, and then, during the Stray Kids survival show in 2017, he eliminated him anyway. That decision remains one of the most scrutinized moments in the entire survival show's history. JYP cut both Min-ho and Felix from the lineup, determining that they were not yet ready to debut. For Min-ho, the reasoning was specific. JYP did not question his dance. That was never the issue. What JYP identified was a gap between Min-ho's physical performance ability and his development in other areas: vocal technique, stage presence beyond choreography, the ability to project personality and connect with an audience through more than just movement. In JYP's framework for evaluating idol potential, technical excellence in one domain is not sufficient if it exists in isolation. A complete performer, by JYP's standard, integrates dance, vocal delivery, facial expression, emotional projection, and audience engagement into a single unified output. Min-ho's dance was beyond reproach, but JYP determined that the rest of the package had not yet caught up to the level his body had already reached. The elimination was not a rejection of Min-ho's talent, it was a statement about completeness, and it nearly cost Stray Kids one of the most important members they would ever have. The reinstatement happened after an evaluation process that the show documented. Min-ho and Felix were brought back into the group, and the circumstances of that return carry significant weight in understanding how JYP operates. Bang Chan, who had been given authority over the group's composition, advocated for both eliminated members, but JYP did not simply defer to Chan's preference. The return required demonstrated improvement, evidence that the gaps JYP had identified were being actively closed. Min-ho delivered on that requirement.
When he returned to the group, the adjustment was visible, not in his dancing, which had always been exceptional, but in the areas surrounding it. His expressions during performances became more deliberate. His ability to convey emotion through his face and body language while maintaining choreographic precision showed clear development. He was not just executing movements anymore, he was performing them, and there is a difference between those two things that JYP considers fundamental. What makes JYP's assessment of Minho's dance ability particularly significant is the standard of comparison. JYP Entertainment has produced some of K-pop's most celebrated dancers across multiple generations, performers who defined what idol choreography could look like at the highest level. When JYP evaluates a dancer within his own company, he is not comparing them to an abstract industry average. He is comparing them to the lineage of performers his company has trained and debuted over 3 decades. For Minho to earn recognition within that context means his technical ability was not just good relative to his peers in Stray Kids, it met a standard that JYP applies across the entirety of his company's history. The specific quality that distinguishes Minho's dance from other technically skilled performers in fourth-generation K-pop is precision, not power, not fluidity, not acrobatic difficulty, precision. Every movement he executes lands exactly where it is supposed to land, at exactly the angle it is supposed to hit, with exactly the amount of force the choreography requires. There is no excess, no wasted motion, no moments where his body overshoots or undersells a movement. This quality becomes most visible in group choreography, where 8 members are supposed to move as a synchronized unit. Minho serves as the visual reference point, the member whose execution most closely matches the choreographer's original intention. When fans or analysts break down Stray Kids' dance practice videos frame by frame, Minho's lines are almost always the cleanest. His arms reach full extension at the precise moment the music dictates. His weight shifts happen on count, not a fraction before or after. This level of mechanical accuracy is rare, and it is not a purely product of natural talent. It requires thousands of hours of deliberate repetition, a deep internship of musicality, and a physical self-awareness that borders on obsessive.
JYP recognized this quality because he understands its value within a group context. A dance-heavy group without a precision anchor drifts. Synchronization loosens over time, especially under the fatigue of touring schedules and back-to-back performances. Having one member who never drifts, whose execution remains metronomically consistent regardless of conditions, gives the entire group a reference point to calibrate against. Minho is that calibration tool. His consistency raises the standard for everyone around him, not through instruction, but through example. When you rehearse next to someone whose movements are always exact, your own movements sharpen in response. That is an influence that does not show up in line distributions or screen time statistics, but it fundamentally shapes the group's performance identity. Beyond precision, JYP also acknowledged Minho's adaptability as a dancer. Stray Kids' choreography spans a wide stylistic range: hard-hitting hip-hop routines, contemporary-influenced emotional pieces, high-energy festival performances that prioritize audience engagement over technical complexity. Minho navigates all of these registers without his movement quality degrading. He does not have a single mode. He adjusts his intensity, his stylistic approach, and his physical dynamics to match what each piece demands, and he does so while maintaining the precision that defines his baseline. That versatility is what separates a skilled dancer from a complete one, and it is the exact gap that JYP originally identified as missing during the survival show, not in Minho's dance, but in his overall performance identity. The irony is that by addressing the areas JYP flagged as underdeveloped, Minho did not diminish his dance. He contextualized it. His movement became more communicative because his expressive range expanded around it. The technical ability that was always there became more impactful because it now served a larger performative purpose, rather than existing as an isolated skill.
JYP's initial elimination, harsh as it was, may have been the catalyst that forced that integration to happen faster than it would have otherwise. Minho was pushed to become more than a dancer, and in doing so, he became a better one. That is the kind of developmental outcome JYP's evaluation philosophy is designed to produce. Not comfort, not validation, but pressure that either breaks a trainee or forges them into something more complete. Minho did not break. He came back sharper, more expressive, and more essential to the group's identity than he would have been if the elimination had never happened. JYP gambled that the cut would accelerate growth rather than end a career, and the result vindicated the gamble entirely. But if JYP's eye for physical performance identified the group's most precise mover, his ear for sonic identity caught something equally specific, a rapper whose delivery hits with a force that most vocalists twice his size cannot generate, packed into a frame that defies every expectation of where that power comes from.
Number 5. The Engine of Intensity, CO Changbin. When Park Jin-young first evaluated the trainees who would form Stray Kids, he was looking for something that went beyond standard idol clean-cut professionalism. He wanted a group that could express the raw, often chaotic emotions of youth, and he knew that to pull that off, they needed a sonic anchor that could deliver pure, unadulterated power. That anchor was Changbin. During the 2017 Survival show, when JYP first sat down to critique the tracks produced by the trainees, he immediately pointed out the sheer force of Changbin's rap delivery. It was not just that Changbin could rap fast, it was that his voice carried a weight and a piercing quality that commanded attention the second he opened his mouth. JYP noted that many young rappers mistake speed for skill, letting their articulation slip and their breath control falter as they try to pack too many syllables into a measure. Changbin did the opposite. Even at his most rapid-fire pace, his pronunciation remained razor-sharp, every syllable landing with physical impact against the beat. Recognizing this rare trait, JYP saw a level of breath control that usually took years of professional performance to develop, which Changbin had already cultivated through his work in 3 Racha, the pre-debut production trio he formed with Bang Chan and Han. Under the name Spurb, Changbin had spent countless hours in underground studios writing, recording, and mixing tracks, refining a style that was heavily influenced by dark, aggressive hip-hop. When JYP listened to their early self-produced work, like the Survival show track Runner's High, he did not see a raw trainee needing basic instruction. He saw an artist who had already found his voice and knew exactly how to use it to drive a song forward. This exceptional vocal weight was famously underscored during the high-stakes trainee showcase battle with YG Entertainment in late 2017. When Changbin performed his self-written verse, the opposing company's founder and head executives openly expressed their astonishment at the trainee's projecting power, speed, and rhythmic complexity, noting that his raw delivery was of a caliber rarely seen within standard training setups. Park Jin-young took visible pride in this external validation, noting to the cameras that Changbin's ability to command an entire stage with nothing but his vocal presence was a direct result of his years of pre-debut underground experimentation and his natural, intuitive understanding of syncopation. In music production, a track becomes muddy if vocals lack the presence to sit atop a heavy instrumental. Stray Kids' signature sound, defined by distorted bass lines, aggressive synthesizer riffs, and industrial percussion, presents a major challenge for any vocalist whose voice might get buried beneath that wall of sound. JYP saw that Changbin's voice had the rare capacity to cut through that density. His vocal tone is naturally resonant and sits in a register that carries well over low-frequency sounds, meaning his lyrics remain legible no matter how complex the production. This capability became a cornerstone of Stray Kids' musical identity, prompting JYP to trust Changbin with opening their most intense tracks to immediately establish the energy level of the song. During the Survival show, he paid close attention to the emotional weight of Changbin's lyrics. Consistent with JYP's philosophy that technical skill is empty without sincerity, he found that sincerity in Changbin's writing. In early tracks like Elevator or his self-written project Streetlight, he wrote extensively about the isolating nature of pressure, the fear of failure, and the facade of strength that young people often feel forced to maintain. Instead of generic boastful rap verses, he chose to expose his own vulnerabilities, earning JYP's praise for writing from a place of genuine, unmanufactured experience rather than copying mainstream hip-hop tropes. This ability to inject real, palpable emotion into a high-speed rap verse is what JYP identified as Changbin's greatest strength, giving the group's music an authenticity that resonated with listeners who were facing similar struggles. JYP's appreciation for Changbin's musicality was further validated when the rapper demonstrated his versatility. While he is primarily known for his hard-hitting rap, Changbin possesses a strong, melodic singing voice. In 2020, he appeared on the popular vocal competition show King of Masked Singer under the alias Toy. By performing Hwang Chi-yeol's A Daily Song and Tableau's Tomorrow, he showcased a warm, expressive singing tone that confirmed what JYP had suspected. Changbin's vocal control was not limited to one genre. He understood melody, phrasing, and dynamic variation, allowing him to contribute to vocal arrangements beyond his role as a main rapper. JYP has often noted that the best rappers understand the musicality of a song as a whole, rather than just their own parts, and Changbin's range proved he possessed that holistic understanding. In the studio, Changbin's production within 3 Racha has been key to Stray Kids' creative autonomy. Despite JYP Entertainment's roster of writers, JYP allowed the group to write their own music because he trusted 3 Racha, where Changbin played a vital part in defining their sonic direction. Within this unit, while Bang Chan focuses on arrangement and Han provides melodic hooks, Changbin operates as the rhythmic anchor, ensuring the track maintains momentum. His production style features dark, heavy textures, famously summed up by his catchphrase "I love dark." JYP recognized that this aesthetic was a structural asset, providing a counterweight to the brighter melodies of other members, ensuring Stray Kids maintained their signature edge. Rather than restrict this style, JYP guided 3 Racha to balance their instincts with accessibility, helping turn tracks like God's Menu and Backdoor into massive successes without losing raw energy. Furthermore, JYP noticed the physical discipline Changbin applied to his craft as Stray Kids' choreography grew increasingly demanding, with the rapper focusing heavily on physical conditioning to become one of the most physically fit members. JYP, who advocates for physical longevity, appreciated this dedication because a rapper who runs out of breath cannot deliver clear lyrics. Changbin's fitness translated directly into live vocal stability. Even during intense routines with complex footwork, his live rap verses remained steady and powerful, a feat JYP often uses as a benchmark when evaluating younger trainees. This physical presence also enhanced the group's overall performance dynamics, matching the power of his voice to make him a formidable performer who captured attention instantly. JYP also observed how Changbin's confidence functioned within the group dynamic, noting that while his stage persona is intense, his off-stage playfulness and self-assuredness allowed him to be humorous without losing the respect of his members. This made him a crucial stabilizing force. In a self-producing group carrying the weight of their own creative decisions, the pressure can lead to tension, but Changbin's balance of artistic drive and a supportive attitude helped maintain a healthy creative environment. JYP recognized that longevity depends heavily on internal chemistry, and Changbin's personality was key to keeping that chemistry positive. Ultimately, JYP's assessment of Changbin was that of a complete, self-aware artist who did not need to be told who he was or how he should sound. Changbin came to the agency with a clear identity, a defined style, and the technical skill to back it up, and JYP's role was simply to provide the platform and the guidance to help that talent reach its maximum potential. By acknowledging Changbin's power, his technical precision, his lyrical sincerity, and his structural importance to the group's sound, JYP validated the unique path that Stray Kids chose to take. He saw that Changbin was not just a rapper, but the very engine that drove the group's intensity, a force that could not be manufactured by any training system. But while Changbin's power provides the heavy baseline for the group, JYP also knew they needed a member whose lightning-fast verbal dexterity and unpredictable creative energy could disrupt that baseline and push their music into entirely new territories. Number 4. The unpredictable genius, Han Jae-sung. When Park Jin-young first evaluated the trainees who would form Stray Kids, he was looking for a performer who could break the established patterns of the industry, and in Han, he found a creative wildcard. Han's journey to JYP Entertainment was defined by a series of spontaneous decisions. Having spent much of his childhood living and studying in Malaysia, he returned to South Korea with a timeline set by his parents. He had 1 year to secure a trainee contract with a music agency, or he would return to Malaysia to focus on his academic studies. The audition at JYP was not a long-planned career step. Han simply accompanied a friend to the audition site to support him, decided to participate on a whim, and ended up being the only trainee accepted from that group. JYP saw an immediate, raw musical instinct in Han that defied standard trainee profiles. He was not a polished dancer or a classically trained singer, but he had an innate relationship with rhythm and melody that could not be manufactured. Within the company's training system, he quickly gravitated toward Bang Chan and Changbin, forming the self-producing Unit 3 Racha under the moniker J.1. This self-assembling unit became the creative core of Stray Kids, and JYP closely monitored how Han functioned within this trio. While Bang Chan provided the structural architecture and Changbin supplied the raw, heavy momentum, Han brought a spontaneous, highly melodic sensibility that gave their tracks their commercial appeal and emotional variety. JYP noted that Han's mind worked at a different speed than most trainees. He was capable of writing entire verses and melodies in a matter of hours, a speed of output that usually belongs to veteran producers. This rapid creative process was famously demonstrated during a busy schedule when Han wrote the track Sunshine in a car in less than 2 hours, a feat JYP noted as a sign of true artistic fluency. During the production of the survival show's signal song, Elevator, the trainees faced a major technical challenge when the key of the chorus proved exceptionally high, making it difficult for the designated vocalists to deliver the lines with stability. In a move that surprised the judges, Han, who was primarily designated as a rapper, stepped forward to record the main vocal high notes. When JYP reviewed the live performance, he was struck by the technical competence of Han's vocal delivery. Han was not just hitting the notes, he was sustaining them with a clean, resonant tone that rivaled the group's main vocalists. JYP remarked on the rarity of a trainee who could deliver main-level rap verses while simultaneously carrying the highest vocal registers of a track. This versatility redefined Han's role in the group, transforming him into a dual-threat performer who allowed the group to shift their sonic dynamics mid-song without losing vocal quality. JYP identified this as a major strategic asset, as it gave the group's producers the freedom to write more complex, shifting arrangements. JYP's vocal philosophy, famously summarized as half air, half sound, emphasizes a natural, relaxed vocal production that avoids unnecessary tension. Han's singing voice naturally aligned with this principle, utilizing a head voice and mixed voice placement that allowed him to reach high registers without straining. This was put on display during the trainee battle against YG Entertainment. Han performed Matryoshka alongside Changbin, demonstrating a fast, rhythmically complex rap delivery that matched the intensity of his partner. But he also participated in the vocal showcase, demonstrating his range and control. The opposing label's executives noted the unusual combination of skills Han possessed, and JYP verified this assessment, pointing out that Han's ability to transition seamlessly between aggressive rap and melodic singing was a defining feature of his performance identity. JYP's evaluation of Han's rap style focused on his high-register delivery. Unlike Changbin's heavy chest voice projection, Han's rap uses a lighter placement that allows him to execute rapid syncopated rhythms with great agility. This stylistic contrast became a core element of Stray Kids' dual performer dynamic. The two rappers could trade lines rapidly, creating a call and response effect that kept the listener engaged through constant tonal shifts. JYP recognized that this dynamic was only possible because Han possessed the rhythmic precision to match Changbin's speed while maintaining a distinct tonal signature. JYP's appreciation for Han's songwriting was not limited to his speed, he also praised the structural intelligence of his compositions. Han wrote several of the group's most critically acclaimed tracks, including 19, Slump, and Another Day. JYP noted that Han's songwriting style is characterized by a strong sense of melody that is both accessible and emotionally resonant. He possesses a natural ability to write hooks that stick in the listener's mind, a skill that is highly valued in the pop industry. In 19, Han wrote about the transition from adolescence to adulthood, expressing the anxiety and uncertainty that accompanies that shift. JYP praised the song for its honesty, noting that it captured the specific emotional state of youth in a way that felt authentic and unforced. This sincerity aligned with JYP's core philosophy of performance, validating Han's approach to songwriting as a central pillar of the group's identity. This emotional depth was also evident in Slump, which served as the ending theme for the anime Tower of God, showcasing Han's ability to write a powerful rock-influenced ballad that demanded both vocal power and emotional vulnerability. But this high creative output and stage intensity came with a significant personal cost. Han has been open about his struggles with social anxiety, a condition that has occasionally forced him to limit his participation in certain promotional activities. JYP Entertainment's management and JYP himself supported Han through these challenges, recognizing that his sensitivity was deeply connected to his creative genius. The anxiety that made crowded public settings difficult was the same sensitivity that allowed him to write deeply emotional tracks. JYP understood that an artist's vulnerabilities are often the source of their most compelling work. Instead of demanding that Han conform to a standard, unchanging idol persona, the company provided the space and support he needed to manage his mental health, a decision that JYP advocated for as part of his long-term approach to artist development. On stage, Han's presence is characterized by a high-energy, almost theatrical performance style. He moves with a freedom that contrasts with the precise, mechanical choreography of some of his groupmates. JYP noted that Han performs with a natural confidence that allows him to connect with the audience instantly. His live vocal stability remains exceptionally high, even when executing the group's demanding routines. This stability is a result of his natural breath control and his disciplined training, ensuring that his live performances match the quality of his studio recordings. JYP often pointed to Han as an example of a performer who could maintain technical precision while projecting a relaxed, confident stage persona, a balance that is notoriously difficult to achieve. Han's ability to command the stage, whether rapping, singing, or dancing, made him a central figure in Stray Kids' live performances. In the final analysis, JYP's evaluation of Han Ji-sung was that of a musical catalyst. He saw a performer who did not fit into any single category but instead bridged the gaps between different roles within the group. Han was a main rapper who could sing high notes, a songwriter who could deliver hits in hours, and a performer who could transition from intense energy to quiet vulnerability in an instant. JYP recognized that Han's presence was what made Stray Kids' self-producing system truly dynamic, providing the unpredictable creative spark that prevented their music from becoming formulaic. He was the wild card that always delivered. But while Han's lightning-fast intellect and dual talents provided the group with infinite musical options, JYP also knew they needed a performer whose physical elegance and mesmerizing visual presence could turn that music into a captivating physical spectacle. Number 3. The relentless performer, Hyunjin. When Park Jin-young first encountered Hyunjin during JYP Entertainment's monthly evaluations, he was looking for a trainee who could convert a visual advantage into a genuine performance-level strength, and in Hyunjin, he watched that conversion take place through sheer willpower. Hyunjin's entry into the K-pop industry did not begin with a lifelong dream of performance. He was street-cast by JYP Entertainment scouts while shopping with his mother, a selection based entirely on his physical appearance. In the highly competitive environment of a major entertainment agency, being cast purely for visuals is both a privilege and a burden. Trainees who enter through this route are often viewed with skepticism by their peers and coaches, who assume they lack the dedication or raw talent of those who auditioned based on skill. Hyunjin was acutely aware of this label. Early in his training period, He was frequently told by other trainees that he would debut regardless of his ability because of his looks, a comment that deeply frustrated him. The emotional weight of this transformation was deeply felt during his trainee years. Hyunjin has recounted weeping in front of his trainers out of frustration when his technical progress did not match his ambitions, a vulnerability that was met with support from Bang Chan, who reassured him that his effort would eventually define his career. JYP respected this emotional intensity, recognizing that Hyunjin's sensitivity was not a weakness but the very source of his performance passion. This skepticism became the driving force behind his training regimen. He resolved to prove that he could be a top-tier dancer, earning the nickname Practice Bug from his trainers and fellow trainees due to his habit of remaining in the dance studios long after the official training hours had ended. He studied various dance styles, focusing on urban dance, contemporary dance, and hip-hop, dissecting each movement to understand how to control his long limbs and build physical stamina. When Park Jin-young began evaluating the prospective members of Stray Kids, he noticed this transformation. JYP, who has seen hundreds of Visual First trainees fail to develop the necessary performance skills, recognized that Hyunjin's progress was not the result of natural ease but of intense, disciplined repetition. During the 2017 survival show, JYP was candid in his assessments of Hyunjin's raw performance. While JYP acknowledged Hyunjin's star power and natural ability to capture the camera's attention, he also identified significant areas that required immediate improvement. Specifically, JYP pointed out that Hyunjin's pronunciation during rap verses was unclear, which detached the listener from the message of the song. Additionally, JYP noted that while Hyunjin's dance movements were high in energy, they lacked the grounding and precision needed for a synchronized group performance. The critique was a direct challenge to the young trainee, who had spent years attempting to shed the visual-only label. Hyunjin's response to this feedback was immediate and practical. He spent hours practicing his pronunciation by placing a pen between his teeth while speaking and rapping, a classic speech therapy technique designed to improve articulation. He also worked with the group's performance team to refine his dance lines, focusing on the alignment of his posture and the control of his transitions. By the final episodes of the survival show, JYP observed a noticeable improvement in both areas, praising Hyunjin for his ability to translate criticism into rapid, measurable growth on stage. JYP's evaluation of Hyunjin's dance style highlighted a specific quality that goes beyond technical execution: theatricality. In K-pop, many dancers can execute complex choreography with high speed and precision, but few can communicate the narrative or emotional tone of a song through their body language. Hyunjin developed a style characterized by dramatic, fluid movements and a high level of facial expression that JYP identified as a major performance asset. JYP has often spoken about the difference between dancing and expressing, arguing that a truly great performer uses their entire body, including their face and eyes, to convey the emotional core of the music. Hyunjin's performances on stage became characterized by this expressive quality. In tracks like Side Effects and Thunderous, his movements were not just physically demanding, they were visually dramatic, matching the intense, theatrical concepts of the music. JYP recognized that Hyunjin's ability to act out the concept of a song made him the visual climax of the group's choreography, the member whose sections on stage provided the most memorable visual moments. This expressive mastery was highlighted during his viral cover of Red Velvet's Psycho in 2020, and later in his solo performance for Studio Chum's Artist of the Month in late 2021, where he choreographed a complex routine to Post Malone's Motley Crue. JYP noted that Hyunjin's ability to command millions of viewers through solo performances was proof of his individual star power, demonstrating that he had evolved from a trainee seeking approval into a leading trendsetter whose stylistic choices influenced the industry at large. This artistic expression was not limited to dance. As the group established themselves, Hyunjin began contributing to their discography as a songwriter and composer. He wrote tracks like Red Lights, a duet with Bang Chan, Ice, Cream, and Love Untold, which showcased a more sensual, melodic, and emotional side of his creative personality. JYP appreciated this development, noting that an artist's ability to write their own material is essential for long-term career longevity. Hyunjin's songwriting often mirrored his performance style, focusing on mood, atmosphere, and emotional nuance. Beyond music, Hyunjin also pursued painting and drawing, a hobby that he shared publicly and which JYP noted as a healthy outlet for his creative energy. JYP, who has long advocated for the mental well-being of his artists, viewed Hyunjin's visual art as a testament to his complete, multi-dimensional artistic identity. It showed a performer who was constantly looking for ways to express his internal world, whether through dance, music, or physical art. On stage, Hyunjin's presence is characterized by a high level of physical intensity that demands significant stamina. Stray Kids' routines require explosive movements, constant jumping, and complex formations, all of which must be executed while maintaining live vocal stability. Hyunjin's dedication to physical conditioning allowed him to sustain this level of performance across long concert sets. JYP, who has always emphasized the importance of live performance integrity, noted that Hyunjin's live vocals remained stable even during his most physically demanding dance segments. This stability proved that Hyunjin had successfully integrated his physical performance with his vocal technique, ensuring that his visual presence did not come at the expense of his musical delivery. JYP's initial gamble on Hyunjin's potential was fully vindicated by the performer's transition from a street-cast trainee to one of the most prominent main dancers in fourth-generation Kpop, a transition that JYP often references when discussing the effectiveness of the agency's training and evaluation systems. In the final analysis, JYP's evaluation of Hwang Hyunjin was that of an artist who converted a visual starting point into a performance-level strength. He saw a trainee who refused to be defined by his appearance and instead worked to become the visual and choreographic anchor of a high-intensity group. Hyunjin's ability to blend technical dance precision with dramatic emotional expression gave Stray Kids a unique visual identity on stage, turning their complex musical arrangements into captivating physical spectacles. JYP recognized that this combination of work ethic, stage presence, and creative versatility made Hyunjin irreplaceable within the group's lineup, a performer who did not just fill a role but actively defined the visual standard of the team. But while Hyunjin's physical elegance and intense expressions command the visual focus of the stage, JYP also knew they needed a voice that could ground that visual spectacle in pure sonic gravity, a member whose deep, resonant vocal tone would surprise everyone who looked at his bright, boyish appearance. Number 2, the cavernous trademark, Felix. When Park Jin-young first heard Felix speak in a recording studio, he was looking at a trainee whose physical traits would define the entire sonic landscape of JYP Entertainment's next major group. Felix's journey from the suburbs of Sydney, Australia, to JYP Entertainment's training rooms in Seoul was defined by a massive cultural and linguistic divide. Cast in Australia, Felix moved to South Korea in February 2017, possessing almost no knowledge of the Korean language and very little familiarity with the intense trainee system. In the K-pop industry, where trainees often spend 5 to 7 years preparing for a potential debut, Felix was placed on a fast track. Within a few months of his arrival, he was selected to participate in the 2017 Stray Kids survival show. This compressed timeline created a significant disadvantage. While his physical dance ability was clear, his lack of Korean fluency was a major functional obstacle. During evaluations, Park Jin-young identified this language barrier as a critical vulnerability. In a group built around rapid-fire rap delivery and precise lyrical communication, a member who could not pronounce Korean consonants clearly or understand the emotional nuances of the lyrics would struggle to integrate into the performance. JYP was direct in his assessment, noting that Felix's parts felt disconnected from the rest of the group because of his pronunciation issues. This evaluation culminated in episode 8 of the survival show, when JYP eliminated Felix from the lineup, stating that he needed more time to study the language and refine his basic skills. The elimination was a devastating blow to the group, but it also served as a catalyst for Felix's development. The decision to bring Felix back in the final episode was not a simple act of television drama. It was a calculated risk based on a unique asset that JYP knew could not be replicated, Felix's vocal tone. While his Korean language skills were still developing, the physical reality of his voice was undeniable. Felix possesses an exceptionally low vocal range, a natural bass baritone that stands in stark contrast to the high tenor voices that dominate mainstream K-pop. In music production, particularly in high-tempo electronic genres, a deep vocal tone serves as a grounding element. JYP, with his decades of experience as a producer, recognized the structural value of this voice. K-pop songs are typically written in higher keys to allow singers to project over loud instrumentals, but this can lead to vocal fatigue for the listener. By introducing an ultra-low register into the arrangement, a producer can create a powerful drop point that resets the sonic landscape of the track. JYP saw that Felix's voice could function as a signature trademark for Stray Kids, a sonic element that would immediately identify a song as theirs within the first few seconds of airplay. This strategic vision was realized in the years following the group's debut. As Stray Kids developed their signature noise music style, characterized by heavy electronic beats and aggressive production, Felix's voice became their most recognizable sonic asset. The most notable demonstration of this occurred in their 2020 breakthrough track, God's Menu. The song's arrangement features Felix delivering the line "Cookin' like a chef, I'm a 5-star Michelin" in a cavernous, highly resonant tone. The line became a viral sensation, drawing millions of listeners to the track and establishing a template for how the group would structure their subsequent releases. In Maniac and Thunderous, the production team constructed the arrangements specifically to highlight the transition from high-intensity rap or melodic vocals to Felix's deep, vibrating delivery. JYP pointed out that this structural use of Felix's voice was highly effective because it created a sense of scale and contrast that few other groups could match. The impact of this voice was further enhanced by the visual juxtaposition of Felix's appearance. He possesses soft, delicate facial features, freckles, and a bright, boyish presentation that typically associates with a much lighter vocal tone. JYP noted that this duality, the contrast between his gentle visual appearance and his heavy, powerful voice, created a memorable performance identity that captured the audience's attention instantly. However, the voice alone would not have been sufficient if Felix had not addressed the language barrier that led to his initial elimination. The work ethic required to overcome this obstacle was intense. Felix engaged in constant Korean language study, practicing his speech patterns daily while executing the group's punishing physical schedule. His progress was documented through the group's successive releases, where his line distributions transitioned from simple, English-heavy phrases to complex, fast-paced Korean rap verses. JYP praised this dedication, recognizing that Felix had converted his greatest vulnerability into a non-issue through sheer persistence. The ability to rap fluently in a second language while executing complex choreography is a testament to Felix's cognitive and physical discipline. This discipline was also evident in his dance development. As a member of the Dance Ratcha performance unit alongside Lee No and Hyunjin, Felix was expected to deliver choreography at a professional level. His dance style, characterized by sharp angles, clean lines, and explosive power, complemented the group's high-energy routines, and JYP noted that Felix's movement had gained the control and grounding that had been lacking during the survival show evaluations. This physical determination was put to the test in early 2022 when Felix was diagnosed with an intervertebral disc herniation, forcing him to limit his physical performances during the group's promotions. Rather than stepping back entirely, he worked closely with medical professionals and trainers to modify his movement patterns, undergoing continuous physical therapy to ensure he could return to full-intensity choreography without risking permanent damage. JYP monitored this rehabilitation closely, citing Felix's discipline in managing his injury as an example of the professional maturity required to sustain a career in high-impact performance art. JYP also observed how Felix's personality functioned as a unifying force within the team. Despite his intense, intimidating vocal presence on stage, Felix is known for his exceptionally warm, gentle, and caring personality off stage, frequently baking cookies for the staff and members. This altruistic side of his character was highlighted when Felix became the youngest member of the UNICEF Honors Club, donating substantial funds to support malnourished children. JYP publicly values this moral alignment, frequently reiterating that an artist's personal character is the true foundation of their career, a standard Felix met through concrete actions rather than simple public relations statements. JYP commented on this contrast, noting that Felix's sincerity and warmth contributed to the positive internal dynamics of the group. In a highly demanding industry, having a member whose natural disposition is supportive and non-competitive helps buffer the team against external pressure. Felix's artistic growth also extended to songwriting, as he began contributing to the group's lyrics, translating his thoughts into his adopted language. This creative development validated JYP's decision to reinstate him, proving that Felix was not just a vocal effect to be used by producers, but an active, contributing artist who understood the identity of the group. Ultimately, JYP's evaluation of Lee Felix was that of a performer who defined the sonic signature of the group through physical uniqueness and disciplined adaptation. He saw a trainee who faced elimination due to a language barrier, resolved the issue through intense study, and went on to deliver some of the most iconic vocal lines in modern K-pop. Felix's cavernous voice and visual duality provided Stray Kids with a distinct brand identity that set them apart in a crowded global market. JYP recognized that Felix was the sonic anchor of the group's experimental tracks, the voice that gave their music its gravity. But while Felix's deep register and visual presence gave the group their signature edge, JYP knew that none of these individual talents would have ever come together without the vision, patience, and leadership of the member who spent 7 years waiting for the chance to build his own team from the ground up. Number 1. The architect of the dynasty, Bang Chan. In the winter of 2010, a 13-year-old boy named Bang Chan walked into the old JYP Entertainment building in Cheongdam-dong, Seoul, having passed the agency's global editions in Australia, a highly competitive process where he competed against over 800 candidates to secure one of the very few trainee contracts available, and embarked on a training period that would last for 7 long years. To survive 7 years in the K-pop trainee system is to endure a psychological marathon that breaks most who attempt it. During his tenure in the old Cheongdam-dong basement practice rooms, Chan endured the grueling cycle of monthly evaluations, where he had to present new songs, choreography, and vocal routines 12 times a year under the direct scrutiny of the agency's executive team, watching his closest training partners, individuals who would go on to form GOT7, Day 6, and TWICE, receive their debut orders, step into the spotlight, and establish their careers, while his own future remained entirely uncertain. Park Jin-young observed this extended period of preparation not as a failure of potential, but as a necessary phase of refinement. In JYP's evaluation methodology, the longevity of a trainee's preparation directly correlates to the stability of the foundation they build. JYP noted that Chan did not allow the isolation of the training rooms to erode his drive. Instead, he systematically mastered every technical discipline the industry demanded. He trained his vocals to handle both rhythmic rap and melodic top lines, refined his dance movement to match the precision of the company's elite choreographers, and learned the complex mechanics of MIDI programming, digital audio workstation navigation, and structural music arrangement. This comprehensive skill set transformed Chan from a simple trainee into an autonomous musical asset who understood the company's creative pipeline from the inside out. Recognizing this rare maturity and technical competence, JYP made a decision that broke with decades of established company protocol. He bypassed the agency's powerful A&R division and gave Chan the authority to select the members of his own debut group. Historically, K-pop groups are assembled through rigorous corporate committee meetings where executives, casting directors, and marketing analysts balance visual archetypes, vocal ranges, and age demographics to create a marketable product. By delegating this responsibility entirely to Chan, JYP was acknowledging that the young trainee's artistic intuition and understanding of interpersonal chemistry was more valuable than any corporate strategy. Chan assembled the lineup of Stray Kids by selecting peers he had trained with, whose talents he respected, and whose personal characters he trusted, choosing Han, Changbin, Woojin, Lee No, Hyunjin, Seungmin, Felix, and Hyunjin because he believed their individual colors would balance each other perfectly. When the group stood before JYP on the 2017 survival show, the evaluation dynamic was fundamentally altered. JYP was not assessing a group his staff had assembled, he was evaluating the validity of Chan's leadership and the structural integrity of the team Chan had built. The critiques JYP delivered during the show were designed to test whether Chan could manage the immense pressure of guiding a group to debut readiness. When JYP eliminated Lee No in Episode 4 and Felix in Episode 8 of the program, it was a direct, public challenge to Chan's choices. Chan took the responsibility for these setbacks onto himself, working overtime to support the eliminated members during their extra training hours and advocating for their reinstatement with JYP. JYP noted this protective, unselfish leadership style, observing that Chan consistently prioritized the team's collective success over his own individual performance. In the line distributions and stage formations of their early tracks, Chan frequently allocated the most impactful sections to his members, positioning himself in supportive roles to ensure the others could display their strengths. JYP valued this selflessness, frequently stating in company evaluations that a true leader must act as a shield for their team, taking the blame for failures while passing the credit for successes to the members. In the recording studio, Chan's role as the primary producer of 3 Racha alongside Changbin and Han, performing under the moniker CB97, allowed him to build the group's sonic identity from scratch. He spent countless nights in the studio writing lyrics, recording guide vocals, composing beats, and mixing tracks, utilizing his self-taught digital audio workstation skills to create a raw, industrial sonic identity that set the group apart from the polished pop style of their peers. JYP, a veteran producer with dozens of #1 hits to his name, recognized Chan's production competence. While JYP occasionally offered critiques on hook placement and commercial accessibility, he granted Chan an unprecedented level of creative autonomy. This trust was fully tested when the group released God's Menu in 2020. The track, which featured a bold, experimental structure, culinary-themed metaphors, and industrial kitchen sound design, was not the song the company's executive committee had originally planned for the comeback, but Chan insisted on its release, confident in its unique identity. JYP listened to the track, recognized its revolutionary potential, and approved the change, a decision that transformed Stray Kids into global leaders of the self-produced idol movement. JYP praised Chan's ability to synthesize aggressive electronic beats with memorable melodic hooks, validating his direction as a producer. Chan's leadership extended beyond the studio and the stage into the daily management of the group's public identity. He established Chan's Room, a weekly live broadcast that ran for over 200 episodes, where he communicated directly with fans in multiple languages, discussing music production, sharing his favorite tracks, and offering emotional support to listeners. JYP noted that this consistent, genuine communication was a critical factor in building the group's highly dedicated global fanbase. JYP also respected Chan's physical discipline and stamina. Stray Kids choreography is notorious for its physical demands, requiring constant formation shifts and explosive movements. Chan maintained a rigorous physical training schedule to ensure he could execute these routines while delivering stable live vocals. JYP, who has long advocated for the physical longevity of performers, cited Chan as an exemplary model of professional dedication, noting that his physical stability on stage set the standard for the rest of the group. The mental burden of leadership was equally significant. Chan served as the primary liaison between the members and the company's executive management, navigating contract discussions, promotional schedules, and creative disagreements. JYP recognized that the group's internal harmony was a direct result of Chan's diplomatic skills and emotional intelligence. When Stray Kids achieved historic milestones, including becoming the first JYP Entertainment group to achieve multiple #1 albums on the Billboard 200 and selling out stadium tours globally, JYP publicly expressed his pride in Chan's achievements, noting that the leader's patience and vision had vindicated the company's decision to trust him. JYP's evaluation of Chan was ultimately an acknowledgement of a complete artist who did not just perform music but understood how to build a community around it. He saw a trainee who spent 7 years in the basement, refused to yield to impatience, and emerged as the head of a self-producing unit that changed the business model of JYP Entertainment. By allowing Chan to build Stray Kids in his own image, JYP validated the idea that authenticity and creative control are the most powerful forces in modern music. Chan's legacy is written in the success of the 7 members he chose to stand beside him, each of whom found their voice under his guidance. JYP's final assessment of Bang Chan was not just a list of technical skills, but a recognition of a leader who had proven that the most valuable asset a company can possess is an artist who knows exactly how to bring out the absolute best in everyone around him. And that, in the end, is the real reason why this group became JYP's greatest modern masterpiece.